Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So hopefully by now you guys have seen part one of the giant reading wrap-up that I have done in order to catch up on the last about 10 months of reading that I haven't talked about on this channel. If you haven't, I will link it below. You should go watch it. It's all of the young adult fantasy and sci-fi that I read over the last several months. And today I'm going to do part 2 of 3 of this big wrap-up. I'm not entirely sure what day this is going to be uploaded, but I'm filming it on the first day of June, which is the first day of Pride Month, and so I'm wearing my favorite tank top, which is I believe in myself. So since last time I did young adult fantasy, this time I'm going to be doing YA contemporary fiction, a little bit of historical fiction, and also nonfiction because it was a small category and I needed to pair it with something. I know you hate this! So I'm going to start off with the young adult fiction. The first of these is The Inexplicable Logic of My Life by Benjamin Alire Sainz. Hopefully I said that right. The other book of his that I have read is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I loved that book so much. It was on my top 5 a couple years ago. This one unfortunately didn't do it as much for me. I feel like the writing of this one was very similar to Aristotle and Dante. It was very lyrical, poetic. It didn't really do a whole lot of plot. It was more character driven and relationship driven. I don't know why this one just didn't really work for me. Part of it may have been that the main character was a straight boy. Part of it may have been that it was a lot longer than Aristotle and Dante, and I felt like it dragged at some points. It's very much year in the life of this high school kid, I forget his name, Sal. And he is a white boy who was adopted and raised by a Mexican-American gay man. His grandmother is also dying of cancer, and he's always been very secure in his family and his friendships and his relationships, but he's started feeling really volatile and getting in fights at school and feeling like there's this monster sort of lurking inside him that he worries maybe came from his biological father. I felt like this one could have worked for me, but I finished it a while ago, sometime last year, and I literally had to go look up reviews of it because I couldn't remember anything about it. It really didn't stick, it felt like it dragged at points, and yeah, sadly I just didn't love it that much. So the next YA contemporary fiction is Always and Forever Lara Jean, which is the third book of the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series, which I used to have in physical copy. I don't think I do anymore. I think I sold it to a used bookstore, which kind of tells you a little bit how I felt about it, but I've always thought that this series was fun and was cute, but was not really like a literary masterpiece, I guess, or anything that was super revolutionary. And I kind of felt that way about the third one too. It was sweet. It's about Lara Jean and her boyfriend Peter, and they're having to deal with the fact that they're going to be leaving for college soon, and they don't know if they're going to stay together, and all of that kind of coming-of-age stuff. I thought it was sweet, but again, this is another one that really didn't stick with me. I read it a long time ago, and I don't remember that much about it. Okay, so the next one, I think technically more counts as historical fiction, but it doesn't have any kind of sci-fi or fantasy elements to it. It is The Pearl Thief by Elizabeth Wein. This is a prequel to Codename Verity. I read Codename Verity I think January of last year, and oh man, did I love it. I can't remember if it made it to my top 5, but if it didn't, it was by a very close margin. So Codename Verity is written in like journal format, and it has 2 narratives. The first is Julie, who is a Scottish girl who has been taken prisoner of war in a like German prison camp. And then the other half of the book is a journal of her best friend, who is a wartime pilot who had to crash land in occupied France, I believe is where they are, and is basically trying to get back to England. It is an incredibly moving story about the friendship between these 2 girls and about wartime spy efforts, and it's got a lot of like unreliable narrator stuff that is super well woven into everything. The audiobook is also fantastic, and so I was really excited to read The Pearl Thief. It is a much lighter story. It is about Julie going back home to the like Scottish castle that she grew up in that has now been sold to like a public works program. Or no, sorry, it's being turned into a school. And then there are like some family heirloom pearls that go missing, and there's like a whole mystery aspect to it. It's really, really fun. It also confirmed my suspicions that I had while reading Codename Verity that Julie is very, very bisexual. I mean, she doesn't use that word. I'm not sure that bisexual even existed in the 1930s. I think is when this is, or early 1940s. But she definitely has attraction to people of multiple genders throughout the book, and it is awesome. So once you've read the just absolutely devastating narrative of Codename Verity, Then you can take a break and read Pearl Thief, and it's just lovely and fun. So coming back to present day, the next book that I read in contemporary fiction is Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart. So the other book of hers that I've read is We Were Liars, which I thought was awesome. It also had a lot of things to do with unreliable narrator. So Genuine Fraud is more of a Talented Mr. Ripley homage. It's about this girl who has stolen the identity of one of her old friends, and I don't want to say too much about it because the narrative definitely shifts a lot as you go through it. This one I liked. I thought it was a fun thriller. I don't think it really does a whole lot beyond being kind of a, like, stolen identity thriller, but sometimes that's what you're in the mood for, and that's all you're looking for. So yeah, it's definitely fun and worth checking out. Okay, so the last of this little section is one that is more historical fiction. I almost wanted to put it in fantasy, but there's no magic or anything in it, but it felt kind of modern in its sensibilities and sort of anachronistic, so I almost wanted to put it in fantasy. But it's so, so cute. It is The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang, and basically it is about an apprentice seamstress who has dreams of becoming a big fashion designer, and she designs this completely outlandish dress for one of their clients, and then catches the eye of the prince who is visiting, and basically he also likes to dress up in dresses but can't tell anyone that because it's it doesn't say exactly when it is, but I think it's like early 1900s, maybe late 1800s. And at any rate, according to society, he's not supposed to be wearing dresses, and she ends up designing a lot of dresses for him, and he has this whole persona, and they go out on the town together. It's so, so cute. It is a graphic novel, and the illustrations are really fun, and like particularly the illustrations of all the pretty dresses are just beautiful. I love the coloring in it too, and it's a quick read, but it's so, so cute and so, so worth it. Okay, so the last little section of this video, this is going to be a short one, is nonfiction. I only have 3 to talk about because I don't read nonfiction a huge amount. The first of these was brought on by my love of the Borgias Showtime series that I think I talked about in a few videos. It is The Borgias: A Hidden History. So the Showtime show does not really make any claims to being like super historically accurate, and I knew when I was watching it that it's not super historically accurate. It basically took a bunch of the rumors that surrounded the Borgia family and just ran with them and just made a fun, entertaining show. It is an amazing show. It is batshit insane. I love it. However, the book, Borgias: A Hidden History, is basically trying to unravel all of the scandalous rumors that surrounded the Borgia family and try to get to the heart of who they actually were and what did they actually do. Because it is actually highly unlikely that they poisoned as many people as history would like to claim that they did. In fact, they may have not have poisoned anyone. Cesare was definitely a military warlord who killed a lot of people, but that's kind of what the standards of the time were. It's unlikely that Alexander actually stole the papacy, like many claim to say he did. It is also highly unlikely that Lucrezia actually poisoned anyone. This is a super interesting book. It's also fun if you've watched the show to see where they were pulling these things from, because he does discuss all the different sort of myths that surround the family and what may or may not have actually happened. And it is fun to compare and contrast the show to the book. I really enjoyed the writing of this. I thought it was really fun. And if you are a fan of the Borgias, it is definitely worth reading. So the next in the nonfiction category is City of Light, City of Poison. This is about King Louis the 14th? Whichever one was the Sun King, and the first police chief of Paris. So I forget the name of this guy because it's a long French name. But basically he was put in charge of cleaning up Paris, and part of that was installing the first citywide system of gas lights to actually illuminate the streets so people can't get away with crimes as much, which is why Paris is known as the City of Lights. It is also about the very large criminal underworld of Paris, especially the poison underworld. There were people who were poisoners, midwives, abortionists, all wrapped up into one. It doesn't just deal with the police chief, whose name I've forgotten, sorry. One of the things in this book that I would maybe put a little bit of a cautionary note on is that there are a lot of descriptions of torture. It was considered just completely normal. People were put to the question, and no one seemed to have realized yet that confessions given under torture are not really always reliable. So this is a super fascinating book about a really interesting period of history. Basically, he ends up uncovering that there might even be a plot to poison the king, and ends up just making a huge amount of arrests. So if you are a fan of like true crime and history, this is so worth checking out. The last of the nonfiction and the last of this part of the wrap-up is Grunt by Mary Roach. This is basically about the weird science of the military. If you're super sensitive about stuff regarding the military-industrial complex, maybe don't read this because she's not really very critical of the military in particular. I feel like she mentioned that in her introduction, although I don't remember specifics anymore. It was more about the research that goes into keeping soldiers healthy and alive while they're out in the field, including things like what their uniforms are made out of and how to prevent heat stroke and massive intestinal problems, because IBS is a big problem when you're overseas and in really bad conditions. There are some chapters that I thought were just super fascinating. There are some chapters that I thought were disgusting, but it's also written with this almost like childlike interest where she kind of just wanders around and makes herself a nuisance and asks a bunch of questions that might sound kind of stupid, but people actually like put up with her and answer them. And I really enjoyed the writing style of this. I really enjoyed the weird science aspects of this, and it definitely gave me an insight into what goes on in the military that I really had no idea about. So that is going to be everything for this part of the wrap-up. The final part will be longer than this one. I have more books to talk about. But I hope that you guys have enjoyed this, and I will see you guys soon with another video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye! Stop rubbing your face on the tripod. This is why you get picked up. Can you hang out up here? Is that okay? You monster!